what do you think, if you had to analyze it from a hard value perspective? Not so. We'll talk about the soft stuff, the cultural stuff,
Sure.
which is a little soft. We could argue that's hard. But what do you think the hard value is around the Caribbean?
Yeah, great question. Well, firstly, unprecedented growth. If we talk problems, we actually had that problem in Jamaica with one of our telco clients in the region, growing 700% from launch and inception within a year span. And so that presents a unique challenge. So why the growth? Why do they like Jamaica? It's a resource. The capability, the education, again, English being first language, and having a very neutral accent because they're university educated, the language is very easy. Cultural alignment is big. So when you go offshore, and I've had experience in my past with PwC and Intuit, going offshore to India and Manila, the challenges there are cultural alignment. I'll never forget the story of having camping reservations done by a Filipino, and there was a question about Airstream. And Airstream is a metal trailer that you camp in, and they thought it was a haircut. And so you can imagine
Wow.
there were some problems with that conversation. So the alignment of Jamaican culture makes it a unique hard sell, along with it's a flight away. So for most North Americans, going far offshore can be up to 26 hours of travel. It feels like it's in your backyard. It's one flight away. The Jamaican culture is very much family first, and that's very aligned to a lot of the type of service work that we do there. So we found that's probably the hardest sell. And then just to add to that quickly on retention, because I know you're going to ask us questions on that.
Agent retention?
Absolutely, I can
feel
see it coming.
Jumping ready.
And so just one comment on that is Jamaicans respond extremely well to knowing they're invested in. So when we talk about, going back to your great point, when the agents know you're invested in them and their community and upskilling and working through layering in new bench strength and new opportunities, it gets very sticky and your retention just soars. So I'm sure you found the same in Guyana. And so that's particularly true in Jamaica.
Okay. Doug, tell us, candidly, what are your clients saying, especially for those that have come out of the clear blue sky and you somehow finally got them down to Georgetown, Guyana?
Yeah, so a lot of what Christine said is exactly spot on. I'll just kind of dovetail off that and double click on a little bit of it. So a similar situation in Guyana, which is native English, right? And what we tell people, because they don't know, you say Guyana and people think Ghana first. We have to educate people. And it's no, it's South America, it's top of that there. It's the size of Kansas City. Whereas you take, say, Bogota, which is millions of people, but to get English, you're looking for a subset of people there, right? And then you're paying a premium for that language, whereas in Jamaica or in Guyana, that's a natural language. And where that makes a difference, there's always going to be accent. You hear our clients, and actually not our clients, I think they're better educated. Customers always say, I don't like the accent. Well, no, that's not what they're angry about. We have accents from New York to Alabama. It's comprehension that makes a difference. We talk about customer effort and things like that. The natural comprehension of having English as a first language stops you. I'm sorry, what'd you say? I didn't get that. Those type of things that start building that customer barometer, up on that. So that's really important. Those two things really lead into a great value proposition. Now you're thinking, hey, native English, great comprehension at a lower cost. And so it's more scalable than you think because it's all native English. That's the starting point.
So, Vivion, when sourcing buyers, especially the more seasoned, they're typically, especially if they've had offshore experience, they're looking at population sizes and seeing huge numbers. Then they look at a place like Jamaica. How do you address that scalability question? I mean, a lot of people probably would have no idea that Jamaica was capable to have doubled itself in the last few years. And what's ahead? Is there a lot more so-called headroom from here?
I think based on what the government is doing in investing in the labor force is going to create continued growth in the sector. In my opinion, I think we're just halfway where we can be. We're currently at about 20,000 22,000 employees with about 60 companies at the moment. If you look across the Caribbean, where there's tremendous opportunity, there are 40 million persons living in the Caribbean, which is much larger than the size of Canada. But as you drill down into that number, there are 6 countries with populations over 1 million. And of that 1 million, there are only 2 who are 100% English speaking. Jamaica is the 3rd largest English speaking country outside of Canada and the United States. So that makes it primed for growth. And you can see by the numbers that that is holding true.
So where does, you're in Toronto, been here a few years. Christine, you're a native? No?
I'm now what they call Canadian,
Canadian.
living in Kingston.
Okay, good. So what is the opportunity relative from the Canadian corporate perspective to working in the Caribbean, either along traditional contact center or up the value chain, digital services,
Right.
other things?
Yeah, I think it's timely that we came in at end of day hearing some of the great panel discussions earlier. Going back to what my friend here has said is, Vivion so rightly put, the labor force can be doubled. And that's highly because of our millennials and Gen Y. The market that we pursue for the type of omni-channel work that we want to see in our outsourced nearshore environments, digital, social media, that kind of skill set is not easy to come by. And these resources are very much post-secondary educated. They have that talent and ability. And their unemployment rate between the ages of, I think, 18, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vivion, between 18 and 25 is almost upwards of 30%.
Yeah.
So it really makes it ripe for the resource requirements that you need with the skill sets required to deliver on not just low-value work, I think was mentioned earlier, using nearshore for lower value work. We actually are deemed by our one largest client as the high value center in the Caribbean, which we just learned recently. And so that's a testament to the culture and to the drive of the Jamaicans overall, and that mindset, that contact center is not the ping pong game that it's become in Manila. It's still very highly sought after and prestigious. It's seen as a place that you wear a 3-piece suit to go into work every day for.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, let me just add on to that. That's a great point. It heads back to that low attrition point. If you have low attrition, if you're retaining your employees, they stay longer, the quality is higher, and now you can give them more complex work. So it's not surprising you can find those opportunities to build out more complex work in the region.
All right, well, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm a journalist at heart more than anything, so I have to ask this question. When you look at a so-called developed economy like the United States, and Canada would qualify as a developed economy, certainly not a developing or third world economy, the popular perception is there aren't enough people in these developed economies to take on work that may not be all that appealing in contact centers. I don't know, let me get just a level check on that. How does that work? Because you actually do have onshore U.S.
Sure.
Brian might get you in trouble with Mike Morrow, but where are we at in terms of attrition in these various locations?
Yes, so enough people to take on is not the challenge you see. So U.S. versus you just said it a minute ago, they come in 3-piece words. How do they value that as a career? How does the local community ecosystem value that as a career? I think if we're all honest with ourselves in the U.S., a call center job in the U.S. is not considered. They don't think of that as a high value career to that, and that's a shame. And so they don't look for that. They don't see that as, hey, I'm of great value and I'm providing a great service. Whereas I think in the Caribbean and some of these other locations, you have that as a nature. So your attrition, it's a combination of things that go into that. So it's not just that, but you're going to see attrition in these locations, at least for us, it's half of what we see in the U.S.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Care to share where we're at in Canada?
I knew you were going to do that.
I'm just telegraphing my questions.
You are, and I felt it, and I thank you. So I would say we didn't start out with half the attrition that we saw in Canada. We operate out of Eastern Canada and have very low attrition there. We started off with fairly high attrition for a couple of reasons. One is we went through rapid growth. in setting up operations. Our clients grew very quickly. What we learned is when you hit a market that has the ability to grow, so it's not that tenured Manila or Cebu or India market, you also have a bench strength issue. And so as you're growing rapidly, you need, and so the issue is on us. It's not the agents. It's us taking the time to step back and invest in corporate training, learning, growth, proper rewards recognition programs, and compensation that aligns with the skills that we're adding to them. And once we did that and aligned more appropriately, getting their feedback along the way, our attrition dropped tremendously. So now we're virtually on par with Canada. So it's a lesson learned. We all learn from mistakes. I'm happy to share ours and report that it's more stable today than our Canadian operations, where you'll see the bubbles because of weather and other factors.
What I find impressive, Vivion, I have to be honest, is Jamaica, we've been watching the market 6 or 7 years now. You're beginning to see a lot of these classic indicators of a growing ecosystem. You have a professional group in the call center industry, separate from the government, right? An industry association. You seem to have a sense where organizations are saying, "Hey, we're going to do what's best for Jamaica," which we've seen it in other parts of Latin America. Unfortunately, there's a lot of other places that are sort of like, we're in it for ourselves. But what is the sense of the ecosystem supporting it, and maybe a little bit about where the government stands relative to this industry?
Because it came out of a stage of infancy in such a short time, there's tremendous camaraderie amongst the players that are in the sector. There was a period in which they struggled to get the association formed, and it was the government who churned in and incubated the association and got it started from 5 members to now over 40 members. Alongside that, the government has been participating in funding construction of commercial space, and they have also been working along with the players as they come in to create training programs to ensure there's a pipeline of talent to continue to support their growth. We see that continuing even despite there has been changes in government admins over the years, and I think it's definitely going to be a long-term solution for taking the economy upwards.
Great.